6:30. The date is Wednesday, August 27th, 2025. Commissioner Atiano is absent, and Commissioner Brian Payne is participating electronically. Are there any more? I don't think so. So I'll now open the meeting and take a roll call. Kalina's here. Jim?
Yes.
And Dot?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
And Marilyn?
Yes.
That makes a group. Please note we're doing a hybrid meeting with in-person and virtual attendance, so if a member of the virtual public would like to make comments during this public hearing, please use the raise hand function on Zoom, and you'll be assigned a speaking time. And if you're listening in via telephone dial-in, press *9, and that will raise your hand, and then press *6 to unmute yourself. This meeting's being recorded by the local scene. Thank you very much. And a record of the meeting will be posted on the local scene website as soon as they're able. Anyone intending to make an audio or video recording of this meeting should notify me at this time. All right. First order of business is signing documents. Just going to hold for 1 minute. Okay. First is signing documents. Will you brief us, or have we already signed everything?
Yep, we have the DOA for 3 Grandview Avenue and the certificates of compliance for 63 Smiths Lane.
Okay, great. Are we sent with those?
Yeah.
They're on their way back.
Yeah.
Very good. So the next item on the agenda is certificates of compliance. This is for 63 Smiths Lane.
No, we're on
We're
to
done with that.
action items.
Moving on to action items, we have a request for amendment, deviation of the Ring Road Solar. And for your information, this is 126 and 131 through 137 Ring Road. And this is SE 037, 0889, and 0890. This is regarding security fencing with wildlife passage included. The applicants withdrawn their request for amendment deviation. Am I correct?
Yes. This is the thing that's been kicking around for a while, and in talking with their counsel, the amendment request was not really an appropriate realm for this kind of question. So they are going to come forward with an RDA filing that's going to ask the commission to determine whether certain exemptions apply for that work under WPA and KWPR. And it will be a better venue to be able to discuss that. And then any, I think, performance-related items would have to be dealt with through COC, the COC process, more than likely.
Seems to make sense? Okay. The next action item is 17 Norbadia Circle, and this is a request for determination of applicability, we call it RDA, for the proposed construction of an addition to a single-family house within the buffer zone to wetland resource areas, and this is including a potential vernal pool off-site. The applicant has requested continuance to September 10, 2025. Any comments on that?
This is just, the commission was asking for the applicant to go to Board of Health first, or to the Health Department first, for that, and that hasn't happened yet.
All right.
So he asked for a little more time there.
All right.
I don't know if it's appropriate to discuss this now, or is it not? It's specific to this one. Just follow up on what we were just discussing.
Should we wait till September 10?
If it's, I would say if it's like substantive, maybe no, but if it's about the process of them checking in with Board of Health and it's something that would help their process along, then I can certainly pass that along to them.
Yeah, so this is more from, I don't care about a specific filing, just in general speaking about all filings that this could apply to. It's, I did go back into, and pull up some of the
the reading involved with this type of, consideration. I think it's important that we, keep in mind the fact that as conservation, we don't talk about building code, we talk about Title V. So when it came up last time, we were talking about definitions for something that didn't apply to our conversation. So I won't go into the specifics of it, but there's a definition for what constitutes a bedroom. And that doesn't flow through the same in IBC, IRC, any of the code cycles, but it definitely has a defined definition in Title V. So when we're having these types of conversations, it's important that we make sure that we're speaking definitively about what's in front of us, which is Title V, because there is a presumption that if you're in Title V compliance, meaning you meet all of the compliance for Title V, you have a presumption that you're not a detriment to the resource areas if you're outside whatever the setbacks are. Once you don't lose that presumption, you are no longer in the presumption land, and you're in a different land altogether where you have to do some more work. So that's why the conversation came up last week. That's what I was trying to before it got into a shouting match. So it's important that I think the board goes in and looks so that you're all comfortable with the language that we're supposed to be looking
Okay.
at, so that we can make sure that we're doing the right thing when it comes up to adjudicating on these types of
And be
things.
consistent.
That's right, right. And now, that's not specific to this one, but it is something that I just wanted to point out that, I did go back and check my math, and, I was within the language.
Okay.
So let's, I think everybody should read Title V at least once. It's fun.
It's arcane.
It's fun. Code of Mass Regulations are excellent reads, so.
I've written some of them.
Yes.
All right. Thank you a lot. The next action item it relates to the right of first refusal for property, map 69, lot 19. This is on Elm Street. Let me take a-
Yeah, so the town received notice of intent to sell Chapter 61 property at map 69, lot 19, August 11th. So that triggers the 120-day town right of first refusal. And the owner of the property had come to me, I think a couple of years ago at this point, saying, hey, I saw what you guys did at Winthrop Street, was wondering, if you would be interested in this property, because I'm starting to, move a few things around. And I said, I don't really think so. I said, but Wildlands Trust may be interested in that because they own a large parcel that it abuts, and they may be able to make good use of the property for public access and sort of to prevent themselves from having another, potential encroachment issue. There's a lot of reasons why. I mean, we all know when you have a conservation property and you can make it a little bit bigger, that's a good thing. It helps with wildlife connectivity and all those sorts of things. This is a pretty small parcel. It's about a half an acre. So it doesn't really, for us, having, a standalone value as conservation land, it certainly wouldn't. But when we received the notice, I let Wildlands Trust know that we had received it because I knew they had interest in the property. And I did get a letter back from Karen Gray from Wildlands Trust saying that they are interested in it and they would like the town to exercise their right and transfer it to them. So that's essentially my recommendation for the commission, and she brought up several reasons why they have a lot of interest in this property. If you're familiar with their Sylvia Pond Place property, and I know that's not actually the name of it, and for some reason I'm blanking on it, but the property that's on Sylvia Pond Place Road has a very small parking area, and a lot of people end up parking along the road, sort of right on top of the wetlands and pond there. It's not ideal. There's not a lot of space on that street.
I think it's the Stewart Preserve, is that right?
Yes,
That might be
Stewart
it.
Preserve.
Stewart Preserve.
Thank you.
Mm.
So having this property would allow them to have a more proper parking area for access to that property, would increase public participation with that property. There is, I believe, a barn on the property that may or may not be useful for them as well in terms of interpretive, things. But one of the main reasons is they own the Sylvia Place Pond Dam, and they are permitted to remove it. They're trying to get the funding to remove it. It's very expensive, so they've been applying for a lot of grants for that. Both during construction and after construction for spillway maintenance, they're saying this is the only way to access that portion of their property. So apparently the current owner of the property had been letting them use that area for access, and if it's sold to somebody who's not providing that access, then they will lose the ability to do that. The dam removal itself is not just an ecological restoration thing, it is a public hazard issue that, that they're looking to mitigate by that. So, a lot of reasons for it. I can pull it up on the screen if you want to see the layout of where the property is.
Yeah, would you?
Talk amongst yourselves. Or stare at me while I fumble through this.
I stare.
I figured you would.
So this is across from the blueberry farm?
Yeah.
Yes, across
I know
Sylvia
Stuart family.
Place Road.
They were great friends of my parents, much older than them. And I picked blueberries in his.
And does the land go up that little hill towards where the barn is now?
Is it where the chicken coop is? Is there currently a chicken coop on it? Or is it across the street from the chicken coop? Oh wait, did you say the blueberry farm?
Well, if you pull
Yeah.
onto it, it's on the right, Matt?
Yeah, exactly.
It would have to be to get to the dam.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. So I think there were chickens on it.
I bet they were at one time.
Yeah.
I had chickens and I had the land, I'd put chickens on it.
I'd put chickens there. If I had a chicken, I'd put it
I had chickens, you want chickens?
Don't go crazy, I got chickens.
Really?
Nope, I've held up chickens 10 years.
We have foxes and I saw
I'm
a
gonna-
coyote.
Yeah.
in my
And I'm
yard.
sorry, for the record, it says map 69 lot 19 on our agenda because
Yeah.
that's what it says on the notice we received.
Yeah.
My records, like in the Access GIS, have it down as 6319.
63, okay. Thank you.
Okay, let me share my screen.
So
Because if I recall, it's tight little access to get into the Sylvia Place,
Yeah.
to the historic preserve there.
Yeah, there's like one off-road spot. There's not really an off-road spot either.
Right.
And just full disclosure, I have taken phone calls about locals being upset with the way that people park there, because it's tough for them to get on the street when they're not pulled off to the side or in that.
Right.
I think it might be one spot that you can pull off to.
Right. Okay, well,
And I've been on that property, it's nice. and-
Yeah, we,
lovely.
John and I did a site walk there years back when Wildlands Trust was
Yeah.
ramping up.
I remember, yeah, you
Yeah.
were there too,
I've
Dr.
never
Dot.
been there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
It'd be
right,
nice if there could be more access for it.
here is Elm Street right in the middle here. This is Sewell's Pond right here. This is Sylvia Place Pond right here, Russell Pond over here. I forget what the name of the tiny little one here is. There is a herring run. There's like a stream that has the concrete
Right.
flume edges to it that runs through here.
Yeah.
And this is the property that's up for right of first refusal right now, roughly half an acre. And then this property right here is the Wildlands Trust, Stewart
perfect.
Preserve. And they own this portion over here as well. So right now, their parking is
It's like right in front of that pond.
right about here.
Right?
Okay.
So there's just kind of like a one-car pull-off here, but there's also like a tiny little area you can pull off the road there. But people, like you said, can just kind of park on the sides of the road, not legally and kind of in the way. So,
Wildlands Trust isn't interested in that little piece of property?
this one?
Is,
They are.
They are. Basically, what they're asking for, and this came up with the Winthrop Street property when we were discussing the tight timeline at that point, that the town was on, was that there was the potential, because Chapter 61 allows for it, for the town to be able to exercise their right of first refusal and then transfer that right to another, agency, another entity to complete the transaction. So that's basically what Wildlands Trust is asking right now, is that the Board of Selectmen exercise their right of first refusal and transfer it to Wildlands Trust to let them complete the transaction. So, if this, does go through. It doesn't have to wait the full 120 days. Obviously, there'll be some legal due diligence and whatnot first, but, you know, if the Board of Selectmen did exercise their right, that would trigger the 90 days that Wildlands Trust would have to close on the property.
And just because I do have a little bit of knowledge on this one, and I didn't know any of it going into the Winthrop Street thing, there's a couple things that are important to keep in mind, I think, when it comes to this stuff, is chapter land is, it basically, there's a trade-off, right? So as a society, we invest in open space, and in return for that, we as a town collect less tax revenue. So it's not a unearned benefit to have the right to buy that land if somebody wants it. In this case, as one person, I don't think that I would advocate that the town buy it, but if there's Wildlands because they own it, it fits with the intent of what that protection was and the investment that we as a town already put into it. I think to assign it and let them take it if they want it, because that's the exact function that it was serving for all those years, and let it go. So I would just say that when it comes to these types of things, it's easy to glass over and say, well, you know, it's their right to sell the land, except for the fact that we've already invested into it, and we'll never get that money back. We don't earn it. So I think it's important to keep that in mind when we're discussing it. So.
Yeah.
And it seems like a really good use if they want it for parking for the dam. It seems like a perfect, you know, use for that parcel that otherwise was just a weird looking parcel that may or may not even be buildable. I don't know.
It's a pretty small parcel.
Yeah.
And it does prevent people from parking. It would be right along Bryant Mill Pond, right?
Yeah.
Which is not at all.
Or the other side of the road as well, as wetlands on the other side.
Okay.
It is, so the notice came with a plan for development of a single-family house.
So do we need to make a motion
Yeah,
or
what
like
do you
sign a
need from
letter
us?
or?
Yeah, I would say a motion to recommend that the Board of Selectmen exercise their right of first refusal and transfer it to Wildlands Trust.
Some be good reasons to do that.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, I'm gonna call it. Jim
Yes.
and Dot? Dr. Dot?
Yes.
All right, Megan?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Colleen is a yes. Brian, is he just watching or?
Yeah, Brian can't vote on
Yeah.
anything.
I can't vote.
All right, sorry, Brian.
It's all right.
All right, that passes.
We're on to public hearings now.
All right, given it's 10:00.
Yeah, it's 6:45 now for public hearings.
All right. I hate that. All right, 6:40, 6:50, so I'm going to open a public meeting. It's not a hearing, hold on. I'm going to open Section A. This is Baker Ave. This is a notice of intent for the construction of a single-family home with a driveway, garage, deck, roof water infiltration system, a drinking water well, utilities, grading, and landscaping, all within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland and the 200-foot riverfront area to an intermittent stream. So I reopen this, and the applicant's requested a continuance.
You're requesting September 24th.
Super. Do I have a motion to continue this matter to September 24, 2025?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Super. Dot?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
And Megan?
Yes.
Colleen is a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
Great, that motion carries. We'll move on to Section B. This relates to 49 Old Mill Road. This is a notice of intent, we call it NOI, for an addition and a porch along the rear of the existing home. This is within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland and the 200-foot riverfront area of an intermittent stream. The applicant has requested a continuance of this matter until September 10, 2025. Do we hear a motion to continue this?
Make that motion.
Second.
And do we have a second? Okay, Dot,
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Lynn is a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
Great, that also carries. We done with hearings?
Yep, that's it for hearings. Back
All right, so we're
to
back to public meetings.
enforcement.
We're on enforcement. All right. I'm going to move to enforcement. Let's talk about 176 Main Street.
Hello,
Hello.
is
Is
this
that-
on?
Green light on?
Look for the
Yeah,
little.
it's on.
the little-
All right,
okay.
perfect.
Welcome.
Hey, thank you. Bill Kenny from Riverhawk Environmental. I'm here to represent Adam and Danielle Dennison regarding proposed restoration of some work that was recently done at 176 Main Street in Kingston. I know Adam came in, or maybe was participating in the Zoom meeting, I'm not sure which was which a couple weeks ago, when this item first came up. So we put together a plan for restoring the affected area, as well as mitigating some knotweed that's been growing up in the area as well, with a knotweed mitigation program. I don't know if you guys have gotten a chance to see the plan that we've proposed. I have it with me. I'm easel-less, unfortunately.
I can pull it up in a minute.
Okay, cool.
We don't have an easel. We don't have one anyway. Doesn't make sense.
You would think that we would have.
Right, in a room, in a meeting room, you'd think they'd have an easel somewhere. But-
I can hold it and talk at the
He's
same
gonna pull it
time,
up
too.
too.
No,
That's
no,
fine.
that's not on you.
No, no,
We
no,
were
no.
just saying that we
I'm like, why
probably should
wouldn't
have.
we have one?
You can talk while I pull it up.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. So, basically, on the restoration plan, we had an existing survey plan that we compiled the area of disturbance, in addition to the proposed restoration area, kind of blown up on a different scale so we can see it. The first step of the restoration will be to bring down any recently filled areas to the previously existing grade. Should be visibly discernible with the presence of organic material we'll see in the soil. Like to do several plantings between. There's a row of eastern red cedars here, which should kind of line up with the general area. The Rocky Nook and that area in general along the Jones River has a lot of that. A lot of red cedars, I believe, as well as like kind of the standard chokeberry and elderberry, high bush blueberry, kind of peppered throughout this area here. We did specify the placement of facultative wet seed in the lower lying area, just so we can kind of ensure that we get as much growth as possible, as quickly as possible, and some mountain laurel a little bit closer to the street to sort of provide some more sort of year-round vegetation closer to the street. I know the project before, there was a lot of like debris and remnants of sort of like hanging out near the bridge and other stuff, and I think they maybe thought that they were kind of doing a good job trying to clean up the area and other stuff, but we kind of went through the process, and I know you guys talked a couple weeks ago with Adam about bringing everything back together as it was with native species.
Could we grab the cordless mic out here? Please?
There's a,
You can put that
All
there.
right,
He's
cool.
gonna bring a
You can put
cordless
that
mic
there.
out,
This
and you'll be
will
able to
allow you
walk up and like point to
okay.
the screen and everything. Just while that's happening, wetland flags here in green, Main Street is right here, driveway is right here, property line is right here. So a lot of the clearing was actually on town property. This is a conservation parcel for protection of the Jones. So you have the area that's in here is actually cleared inside the wetland. The rest of this is buffer zone. And then there was the kind of cut that came down through here from stormwater. I do have photos from, we did a site visit again the other day just to take a closer look at this area, because you have an area of grass proposed right here. Just wanted to kind of confirm that there was originally grass there anyways, and it appeared that there was, and there's a rock wall that goes along the property line and kind of comes all the way down and seems to sort of go down, you know, sort of under the dirt over here in this area. So, sorry, you can continue now.
No,
Just
that's
talking
great.
through
Thank
the
you.
dead time.
That's all part of the spiel as well, like kind of giving the lay of the land. We did specify sort of some lower lying shrubs next to the driveway, because there's a bit of topography, so that kind of there's a visible barrier if it's dark or whatever. Someone won't drive off into the abyss, to the extent we can give them a little warning, as well as some placards in notice that there's a sensitive area there, kind of in line with what the 4-inch by 4-inch posts with the placard on top of it, similar to other properties. One thing we weren't sure about, and I wanted to get the commission's take on, is sort of how to handle these posts, especially close to the stone wall, if there's any precedence for kind of sticking or adhering the placards to a stone wall, just to let people know that it's a sensitive area behind, ecologically sensitive area. Or if the posts are preferred at all times. The posts are they're good because they put it in a place where people could see easily, but they're bad for a couple of reasons. Bad in vegetated area because they're prone to getting wiped out with a lawnmower or something like that, and just kind of in the way in maybe not the best idea. But Matt actually had a good idea to extend these placards and posts, at least, or some kind of signs, all the way down the property line, towards the west, so that any future users of the property can see that there's a sensitive area on the other side, beyond where they have their yard in the back. And that won't be a problem either. I think it's a good idea, even though it's outside this zone.
I'm just gonna see if I can pull up the picture of the backyard without backing out of this, and that may not be possible. Of course not. Let's see. This is standing in the cleared area looking towards the driveway and the erosion control, looking towards Main Street. This is standing next to, I'm actually standing on town property now. The subject property is to the left. This is where the rock wall comes away from the barn. That's sideways for some reason. That's, again, the rock wall in the barn showing grass area there. That's proposed to be reseeded. This is standing sort of at the split between the backyard and the front yard, looking towards Main Street. The barn's right here, rock wall here. This is the area that shows up as grass on the restoration plan. And this is the area of Japanese knotweed to be controlled. This is looking into the backyard, and this was sort of what I had suggested that typically the commission would like to see conservation posts go the whole way down for protection, because essentially the wetland line is right behind this rock wall. And then I thought it might be a little silly putting posts right in front of like a historic rock wall or an older rock wall like that. And I wasn't sure whether there would be, I don't know. Figured it was worth discussion tonight with the commission to see how the commission feels about it, because I thought it's good to have protection the whole way back. In some capacity, the wall does itself provide some protection against that, but that's not to say somebody wouldn't just go on the other side of the wall, hire a contractor to mow everything the whole way back, because a lot of it is invasives and does kind of keep reaching out over the wall, encroaching on the yard, so it's kind of a battle to push it back, and what happens is people want to hire somebody to knock it back a few years. So I'm not saying there shouldn't be something there, but I wasn't sure if conservation posts on the inside of the rock wall were the right move, or if there was something where placards could be put on the wall in some fashion that would work for that too. It's up for
May I ask a question?
discussion.
Yes.
Right, so Matt, are you saying that the post is supposed to go on the grass side? Or is it possible to just put the post on the back side and call it a day?
You could put the posts, I think that was originally what we had talked about, but then in being there and looking at it, I thought it would be impossible to have the posts be there and be visible. Like with tons of invasives, multiflora rose and bittersweet and stuff like that, I feel like it's gonna be, like you could say, hey, they have to be like 8 feet tall, and maybe then they would be a little more visible, but if they were standard height or even a little bit taller than that, I feel like it's gonna be pretty hard to make sure they're visible over time.
So if we think that just a little bit, and I'm not advocating one way or another, just devil's advocate, right? If somebody goes back and they start weed whacking, they're gonna run into the post pretty quick, because the invasive isn't growing on the stone wall, it's gonna grow and overhang, so as soon as they start cutting it, I expect that they would uncover the posts, so, you know, from my perspective, I don't care. Whatever, if we get some kind of, you know, placard that ties into the, you know, and isn't an eyesore, but I just don't see any benefit to having posts on the right side of the wall that's already, you know, fully, you know, grassed in and all that stuff, I guess.
And posts on that
Somebody's
side
gonna hurt.
almost indicate that you can't do anything at all to the wall, which is
Yeah,
not.
it's already disturbed up to
Yeah.
the wall, let's, you know, if we're gonna do something, I'm fine with, you know, throwing something on it, you know, in a permanent fashion, or, you know, throw some posts on the backside enough so that somebody will see it, and then as soon as they get in there, you know, they don't go 20 feet and say, oh, I found the post afterwards, you know, without having us look really suspect at them, you know, saying
Right.
that you saw the post as soon as you got over there, and yeah, it wasn't there, but it was clear quickly, and you kept going, so, you know, we could
Yeah.
always have that kind of tack with
I
it.
think there's probably a way to get something on the rock wall that holds the placard that's not ridiculous looking and that it isn't too temporary in nature.
Is that innovative?
I mean, it's something that would require maybe some thought on their end about what are you doing? Are you cutting just like a little chunk of 4x4 and gluing it to the rock or something with the
Well,
placard
it's a
on it?
brass
Like-
anyways, right, or some kind of metal anyways.
Yeah,
right?
you can put them on the front of a
Epoxy it right
flat-facing
on it.
rock or something, like, there are ways to do it
Sure.
where it's there, and you would be saying it has to be maintained there, but it's not, you know, something that becomes, you know,
Yeah, it could blend in pretty.
an issue, yeah.
It's been used successfully in other settings?
I think we've done similar things before. We've definitely done them on fences before, as opposed to conservation posts. I mean, there's definitely,
Just out of curiosity,
ways.
why wouldn't you just use a little bit of a taller conservation post that just would come above the height of the stone wall, behind the stone wall?
again, I just thought that it wasn't really gonna necessarily be visible. Like, if that area isn't maintained all that well.
That it'll just keep growing?
There is a
Well,
wire
it's
fence behind
become-
the stone wall in this area. You can barely see it in, like, kind of the post of it here. It's not in the best shape, so I don't know how long it's gonna be around in the future. But, you know, any one of those options would work, I think, as long as it's, you know, visible to people pretty quickly.
Other people have the posts right in the middle of their lawns. I don't know why they just couldn't be in front of the stone wall.
I think it would be prone to getting destroyed with a lawnmower or something like that, so it wouldn't necessarily be the most sustainable option.
Well, I think people just have to be aware that you don't mow over the poles.
How high, there's a height, wait, is it 2 feet, what's the standard? say?
Typically, we do 2 feet down, 2 feet above.
All right, but I mean, I see 4 rocks there, that 2 feet, is it 30 inches, how tall is that wall? Please?
Yeah,
probably about
knee
2 feet.
knee high,
Knee
yeah,
high?
yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, if they went 36 inches high, they'd be able to see the post above the wall without really seeing it, and, you know, if something was to overhang, it would come back really quick, because it's still higher than the stone wall, and at some point, the post's not gonna be there anyways, but, you know. I don't have any issues with that.
It's up to the commission.
My 2 cents.
I just had a couple questions about the actual plan, because they're different than what is on our OneDrive.
Yes,
Okay.
I got an updated plan today.
Is that the updated one?
This is the updated one
Okay,
now.
so
Yeah.
no arborvitae's and
Correct.
more?
He had
Okay.
sent in a draft plan, and sorry, I'm just kicking through the last of the pictures here, but he had submitted a draft plan last week, and I'd given feedback on some things like
Okay,
species and more posts and things like that.
okay.
I also have just another question, just on the, the whole cause of what happened here. And Matt, this was it looked to me to be like a driveway replacement. Looking at the other driveways nearby, they have pretty good humps where it's up and down so that the water stays in the gutter and makes it down to the culvert, which is down gradient. But it looks like in this case, the water ran over, and I don't know why, but you would think that down gradient, it would have entered from a different point closer to the Jones, more on the town land. So kind of goes back to my original question back then, when we first discussed that, of something obviously happened that changed here. It wasn't just the fact that they, put some lawn in. Something changed in the stormwater flow here that resulted in a problem. And my question right now would be, before there's money invested, to correct this on the expensive side, is there something else that needs to be discussed with, DPW to make sure that if there's a problem with our, street drainage, let's do that before they spend their money, because when we get another 10-inch storm, it's gonna wash everything out to the Jones anyways, and we're gonna be at square one.
Are you saying that, I thought you said in the beginning that you thought maybe like the crest of the driveway has changed.
I was thinking, because where the apron is, where it comes out and then the curb stops, if they replace the driveway, is it potential that they took a little bit of a hump out, and is that gonna just repeat this problem on the next big storm? And if that's the case, then let's talk to, the smart people in sewer and water and see what they say as far as, is this gonna be a repeated problem that's just gonna, and if that's the case, let's make sure that our, solution in this one, takes that forward-looking stance on it, to make sure that if there's something else that needs to be done, let's do it before they invest, several $1,000s on, plantings to bolster it, because you ain't stopping water once it finds its flow.
I think it's an interesting question, because the driveway is definitely new. So I think it's an interesting question of whether there was a hump taken away that may have diverted more of the water along the road. But according to the homeowner, around the time where this happened, the catch basin closest to the house on the downstream side was jammed up with
Right.
stuff from
It
DOT's
floods there all the
road
time.
project.
All
But
the
then by
time.
the time I was out there with him, it had been cleaned out. The DOT had sent a crew out to clean those. So it could be
But the
multiple
height
issues.
is my problem on that, right? The height of the runoff going down the driveway should be 8 inches. I'm trying to pull it from my memory, but it should be 8 inches higher than the storm culvert, because it's up the hill a little bit, not significantly, but it doesn't take much to get 6 inches when you're talking about a couple 100 feet or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, it should have been overrunning the 6-inch curb into our conservation protection parcel there, and this runoff, and erosion should have been there instead of up, and so it's more of a question of, is there a conversation that we should have before we, say, yeah, go plant all this stuff and it washes away? And that's all. I just don't wanna see him spend the money on doing everything right, and then next storm it's washed out and we're back here.
I can check with Highway, but it was a significant event, which I'm not saying we're not getting more of those, we surely are, but it was a substantial event with DOT doing everything they were doing out there. There is decent erosion control in place now, in theory, and I know, in theory is the problem. you're right. So, I mean, I can check with Highway at least and see if they have any information on any of that.
At least
But
we'll
I
know we
don't-
did the right thing. We
I don't
asked
know,
the
I mean, we
question.
don't have an engineer on staff, so that makes stuff
But
like that
if it's a
little tough.
deficiency that he knows about, then maybe it goes on the list of, you know, our stormwater upgrades,
Yeah.
understanding that it's just not gonna be perfect until, you know,
And
we do
maybe,
better. you know?
and maybe Bill can talk about the driveway a little bit.
It's a pretty big hump that goes up. It's, you know, consistent with the sidewalk, at least, the hump at the top of the driveway, at their, like, noted,
So you think
notably.
it's as high as the surrounding?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good enough for me on
So
that side of
it must have been pretty, you know, backed up somewhere or flowing pretty crazy at that point. And
But you
and
would
they-
agree that the overrun should have been closer, it would have been longer water sitting down slope, and at some point, it should have had an outlet along that path. So why did it curl into the driveway the way that it did,
Right.
and flow, and, I mean, because that was not a little erosion. that
Yeah,
was-
I guess it's kind of
big
lucky
cut.
that it went there as opposed to into the building or, you know, the house or the barn or something. Maybe
Yeah.
the grades aren't.
Because if it is coming off the street, then it's a street problem, and we need street to, you know, it's unfortunate that it's our street, and we, you know.
It's not our
technically-
street.
I mean, as a town
The state,
versus.
state's
Oh, it's a state street?
responsible for that.
Oh,
yeah,
even,
yeah.
even better, let them clean it next
Yeah,
year.
I'll reach out to Highway and DOT, on that.
Because we certainly don't want this to happen again to these people, if it's a problem with the design.
What
Other than
el-
that, I thought it looks like a very responsive, document we're looking at.
Maybe we can talk a little bit about, the narrative portion, monitoring, things like that.
We proposed a 2-year monitoring program of the plantings in, you know, invasives, at least around the plantings where we didn't see knotweed. So we'd have probably Brad Holmes from ECR out to conduct the inspections and write up a brief report that we'd submit to the town. I think we specified 2 years for that. For the knotweed, the separate sort of performance monitoring basis for that, that we offered basically 3 different options for the treatment of those, you know, between cutting the plants back, treating them with glyphosate, and then removing the dead vegetative material. It's typically a 3-year process to get some reasonable performance with that, and then a little bit of a lifelong commitment to take care of the 1% before it becomes more than 1% again. And that's, after that, it's kind of tough. Some of this knotweed that's within the area of disturbance is on the town's property, so it'd be kind of tough for Adam to reach back over and, you know, continue to remove things. But we at least offered, you know, kind of taking care of that stuff within this area that was disturbed, for a 3-year period, and reporting back to the town on a frequent basis with that as well, as part of this enforcement.
No, I'm just waiting for Matt to respond to what he just said.
I think 2 years, pretty standard. Typically, what we require is the year of completion doesn't count. So you're doing a completion memo stating that everything is done and showing pictures and all that stuff, and then the following December is year 1, the December after that is year 2. Just because there's no point in doing a follow-up, you know, usually a couple months after planting. You want to see whether this stuff is getting established. And there's typically standards for, I think, 75% coverage for a performance threshold, where if it's not 75%, then you're planting more and getting the area the way it should be. So, I mean, what I would ask on this, if the commission has any more questions, ask questions. What I would ask on this is that I have more time to review the final plan before the commission voting on anything. Having said that, it's like you want to get stuff moving. Coming into a good time of year for, successful planting, so I don't think delaying by a couple weeks is a huge issue. But it may be best to, You could just continue it to the next meeting and deal with it then, or you could have a conditional vote where it's based on my review. We're gonna do this through an enforcement order issuance. You know, I'm gonna update the enforcement order that was already issued to mandate this work get done, but I would certainly like the time to review the final documents before then.
I had a question on the 3 options for the treatment of the knotweed. You mentioned the use of say it again, the chemical that,
Glyphosate.
right, isn't that the same thing as Roundup?
Yes.
So what's our take on using that in that area?
I don't have a personal preference or major issue. It depends on the literature. Some people are dead set against using glyphosate anywhere. I think there are ways to be more targeted about it than spraying, but typically when you're doing knotweed, step 1 is you're mowing it down earlier in the year. You let it grow up pretty high, and then you mow it down, and then you wait for it to regrow again, and then you spray it, and it's typically, you know, significantly shorter at that point, which helps avoid drift and things like that.
But you said targeted as opposed to just a broad spray.
Yeah, I mean, I think as opposed to just showing up when it's 10 feet tall and covered in pollinators and spraying it, I think that's, yeah.
Well, there's benefit, if I remember correctly, I mean, at some point, I looked this up. I believe that its growth takes away from the strength of the root system, like the starches or whatever. So that the thought is that if you cut it down, you already kind of attack it by using up some of the stored reserves, and then you hit it because it's not as big, so you don't need to use as much, and it pulls the plant pulls the poison down into its root system to attack the roots, because that's how you kill knotweed. You got to kill the roots. And there's no way to dig it up and get all the rhizomes, right? Because that's what you're looking at. So
It's really, from what I've gathered, that's really the main way that people have success with knotweed is that way. There is a stem injection method where you're taking the stuff and injecting it right into the canes, but it's very expensive to have somebody come and do that.
I mean, it's
You have to get every single cane. Yeah.
It seems like a really good idea.
That is
Practice.
often held for in wetland use. If you have knotweed growing in a wetland, a lot of times the commission will require that as opposed to something else. In this case, I think a licensed applicator that knows what they're doing shouldn't have much issue with off-target impact. I don't recall off the top of my head if triclopyr can be used instead. If triclopyr could be used instead of glyphosate, that might be a better option. I just don't recall whether that's as active on knotweed. Triclopyr has a better, more consistent track record anyways in the literature for this type of thing. But I don't feel personally strongly about avoiding glyphosate in every situation completely. If Pine were here, or if she's listening, she'll yell at me later and say that I'm wrong. And, you know, PFAS contamination from the containers that the pesticides are kept in is something too. And
Well, I thought it was worth bringing up, especially since we can fine-tune how you approach it.
right. It's certainly worth always talking about, but personally, I think that chemicals can be a tool to achieve the goal of, you know, reducing invasive species. I mean, in this case, there's one that we know will keep spreading on that site and, you know, but at the same rate, the rest of the whole property all the way to the Jones River is not without invasive species. I could list off probably 10 species that are dominant in that area. So, yeah. I don't know.
As I said, I'm not suggesting we disallow it. I am suggesting that we do it in as comprehensive way as possible.
Sure.
Cutting it back, targeting as opposed to just a spray, that kind of a thing. I don't think that's an unreasonable request.
Certainly not.
Yeah, and I think that's the only way to succeed with it anyways. I think if you just go up and spray it, it's gonna die back, it's gonna come right back.
Just because it was asked, I mean, as one person, I would be perfectly content with voting on this tonight and approving, you know, based on what we said here, with the caveat that, you know, you gotta fine tune the final plans. And I don't know if anybody else agrees with that or if they wanna wait, but I don't see any, aside for some follow-up questions, I think we got what we needed to get on this one. It's something that we could move forward with the understanding that it's not 100%, but it's really close, and when it is, it can go.
Yeah, and it might be there, but again, just, we had a pretty short turnaround time for review on this particular one. I don't think there's any procedural issue with something like what you just said. I think if I found something that needed to be fixed, they're just gonna fix it and get it back to me, and I can still, so I think if you vote on issuing enforcement orders to mandate the restoration work, I can run with that. It's just, you're gonna wanna include a timeline. So,
You have a recommendation?
I would say, I don't know, Bill, is mid-November reasonable
For getting going with things?
for getting the restoration work completed?
Oh, yeah.
The planting and the.
I think
and the-
that they're motivated to get this done as soon as they can, including, you know, using irrigation if they need to keep plantings alive. It's kind of an eyesore, or you saw in the pictures, it's not ideal, and it's Main Street, so it's not ideal for people driving by and stuff either.
Let's do November 15th. I just pulled that off the top of my head, so that could be a Sunday for all I know, but let's just do November 15th, and chances are they'll already be done with it by that point.
Okay, so you're saying
I'm issuing, I'm issuing
Right.
enforcement orders under the local and the state, mandating that the work on this restoration plan be completed by November 15th. If the work is not completed by November 15th, daily $300 fines would be issued.
And as otherwise described in the meeting, so that you can do your final review and you can, you know, nail down the knotweed. That fair for everyone?
Yes.
All right, I'll make the motion to authorize Matthew to provide the enforcement order as described in the meeting tonight.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Do we have a motion and a second? And take a vote on that. Dot,
Yes?
Jim,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Colleen is a yes, and Marilyn.
Yes.
All right, great. That motion passes.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to 39 Winthrop Street.
Yes. Commission asked me to reach out to the homeowner to let them know that we needed a filing for the unpermitted work by, I forget if it was today or 2 days ago, but either way, it was submitted on time in the form of an administrative review application. I did a site visit on that yesterday, talked a lot with the homeowners about jurisdictional areas and sort of the way things work and sort of what things should be permitted, what shouldn't. And I will go forward with reviewing whether the project meets the requirements of admin review or not. And I let them know that if it doesn't, then they would have to file an RDA. So that's where we're at. They've complied by filing.
Are we supposed to be able to read this?
No, that's strictly for me.
Okay.
Yeah, you're never gonna read my handwriting.
I read like 50% of it.
Did you?
Yeah.
I'd be interested to know if you read it correctly. It's pretty bad.
I was like, I don't,
That's called job security. I'm the only one who can read it, so you gotta keep me forever.
I can read half of it. I don't know.
So,
Yeah, so I just I went there just as a preliminary to see the site and everything. I saw the wetland flags that South River Environmental did there. And like I said, it would be a matter of whether it actually meets the standards of admin review because it is pretty close to the flags. It's a tricky lot in that when it was developed very close to the the wetland, at least where the wetlands are now. Maybe they were a little further back, back when that, who knows? You know, things do occasionally shift like that over time with different hydrology, but it's very close to the backyard area. And this property actually had a above-ground pool at one point too, although I don't know if that was ever permitted or not. But, you know, it is tricky in that the wetland line is very close to the edge of the current cleared area, so it's pretty hard to stay out of the 50-foot no structure. So that may be problematic for this, it might not. I haven't fully looked at it yet, but they did comply for now. If the commission wants to kick this down the road to make sure that, you know, if admin review doesn't work, that an RDA is filed, we can do something like that. Or I can just bring it back on my own later if that's the case. It's up to you. I don't think it's a major enforcement issue, you know, in progress that would be problematic in that sense.
So you want the commission to establish a timeline for you, or just come back with?
Doesn't matter to me, whatever you're comfortable with.
I couldn't hear what you said, Claire.
The question of the commission establishing a timeline, or Matt just bringing one back.
Well, you said you needed to review it to see if it meets the admin review.
Yeah, essentially the commission asked for a filing. We received a filing, but it's an admin review, and I still have to review to see if the work actually meets the guidelines of the admin review. And I explained that to the homeowner, that there's, I think, the list of 10 requirements to meet admin review, and if the project doesn't meet that, I can't legally issue the permit. He said in that sense, you'd have to file an RDA.
So it just sounds like if it meets it, then you can keep moving. If it
If it meets
doesn't
it,
meet it, it
then-
has to come back here.
Yeah, if it meets it, then great. If it doesn't meet it, then I have to deny the admin review, which means they would have to file an RDA.
Right.
So I think it's a situation where the easiest way to handle it would be if it needs an RDA and then there's no RDA filed, at some point, we have to
Then-
compel you to come back for enforcement if no RDA is filed. But I don't know that we need to set a date on that. But if it makes the commission feel more comfortable, it's fine with me.
No,
Yeah.
Okay.
Please, note that I abstained from this matter.
Okay. And for the record, Jim has abstained from the 39 Winthrop Street matter. All right, and we're moving on to 164 Pembroke Street.
I have to recuse myself and go sit there.
We'll wait a minute while you take a seat in the audience. If people will just move aside a little bit to make room for you. And this matter of enforcement involves 164 Pembroke Street. Matt, what have you got to say?
We did a site visit August 20th with the homeowner, Joe Kasna, who was present. And we had Commissioners Vendetti, Hickey, and Payne present. We walked with the homeowner through the front lawn, behind the sloped landscape plantings, towards the edge of the vernal pool, which was very low water at this time of year, like many things around. We discussed how rain would likely carry any granular application down into the pool, affecting water quality. We also walked through the side and backyards, saw how the property is in compliance with the conservation posts, and there has been no recent dumping of landscape debris. The main reason for me wanting commissioners to be on site to see that was the enforcement issue in front of us was related to chemical application in that front lawn area by the slope leading down to the vernal pool. The homeowner had expressed to me that he didn't think that anything that was applied to that lawn had any potential to get into the vernal pool, which I didn't agree with. I wanted the commission to see it for themselves. So that was sort of why we walked there. We talked a little bit about how granular application of chemicals, fertilizer, or the fertilizer with, herbicide in it, essentially sits there until it fully dissolves. And if you get a big rainstorm that moves water, it's gonna move, it's gonna find that downslope wetland. And that is likely what's happening there, which I believe is adding to water quality issues in that pool. I can't confirm that, but that appears to be the case. So what I wanted out of all of this is a way for everybody to go forward without any lack of clarity, right? We had perpetual conditions on the property that said that you aren't allowed to do that. And then you had another condition that was put on years later by probably a different iteration of the commission for a different portion of the property that may or may not create some sort of lack of clarity with that, depending on whose counsel you talk to. Bottom line, we still have the Wetlands Protection Act and the Kingston Wetland Protection Regulations, which is if you contaminate a wetland, there are penalties for that. What I want is for everything to be clear to the homeowner, to me, to all the commission, what he can and can't do with that lawn area, because I don't want the gray area. I don't want there to be applications there and me have to be constantly reaching out to the applicator, asking them what they're applying, or just talking to the actual applicators that day, because often that's a different story, for whatever reason. So I think it's, there's one thing, the way that the perpetual condition is written, no contaminants, right? It also says no herbicides, but specifically contaminants, right? So already that herbicide that's acutely toxic to aquatic life, not allowed no matter what. But when it comes to fertilizer, what constitutes contamination, right? There's a lot of talk about organic fertilizer. Well, organic fertilizer can pollute a wetland just as good as chemical fertilizer can, depending on its composition. So that kind of was what I wanted the discussion to go around. Obviously, he wants to have a lawn. He wants to have a nice property, but with this particular property, with proximity to wetlands and proximity to a vernal pool, I think it's not likely that you can maintain a lawn of a high caliber that needs a lot of fertilization. So there are other ways. There are things like, there are companies that do stuff like compost tea. That's the only thing I can think of that could potentially not be a contaminant in that vernal pool, given that it's applied wet. And thought process there is you're applying a wet substance to the lawn. It's getting soaked up into the roots before it rains up. So, that's, to me, the only thing I could think of that feasibly could be applied there without being a detriment to that vernal pool. Now, if you were applying a liquid chemical fertilizer that's super high nitrogen and applying enough of it that it's running off, that would clearly cause an issue. But that's the only thing I could think of, is that there's potential to be able to use something like compost tea from a little backpack sprayer or something, could provide nutrients for the lawn without providing a runoff issue. But any granular application of anything is going to sit there, and if you get very light rains for a couple times after that, maybe it all dissolves and gets uptake by the roots and does not run off. But if you get a big storm, I would say a good portion of that stuff is going to either directly get carried away or dissolve in that water and get carried away across the lawn. And a lot of what gets put on that lawn likely ends up in the vernal pool that way, and other wetlands across the property. So that's what I wanted the commission to discuss with the homeowner here, have everybody be on the same page going forward, so that we don't have, I think in general, and I think the commissioners who were there saw when we walked around, that other things were in compliance, right? We had an agreement on conservation posts were installed. I did some of the annual inspections and twice a year inspections, and then I don't think for the last couple of years I've even been out there. And we went out there and there was no evidence of anything being encroached on. There was, we had conversations in past years with his landscaper about, you can't dump stuff out there. You can't be blowing all the stuff into the wetlands, that kind of thing. You can't be dumping stuff in the wetlands, and there was no evidence of that. I think we have somebody who wants to not come back here again, and providing some guidance like this is a pretty clear way to allow that to happen. And then it's very clear that if you're not in compliance, then you have to come back. So, any questions?
Come on up, Mr. Kastner, and could you identify yourself for the record?
I'm sorry.
Just identify yourself for the record.
Oh, I'm Joseph Kasner, and I own the property that Matt's talking about,
And this is 164 Pembroke?
164 Pembroke Street, yes. We don't want to have a lawn. We've had the lawn for the past 30-plus years. It's not something that we want to have that we've never had. The lawn sits atop a leaching field, and from my experience in my business, that creates a very rich situation for lawns. I don't know what went on. I have a contract with a landscaper who takes care of the property. Matt's met him, he knows him pretty well at this point. But that particular application, be it wrong, right, again, it's not my business. I hire them, I pay them, and that was that. I'm sorry, whatever happened, happened, but I personally think it's a reach to think that the lawn fertilizer is what's providing the nutrients into the vernal pool. I had a lot of time on my back these past 10 weeks, and I spent some time doing some research on vernal pools. And I found out that the algae bloom that you might have noticed when you were there, that indicates that the water in the vernal pool is very rich in nutrients. And those nutrients come from primarily phosphorus and rotting wood. And if you look in the vernal pool, that's one of the big sources. There's trees just laying in there. I mean, there's a lot of that going on there. But what I was hoping we might be able to come to would be something along these lines. One of the concerns that Matt's expressed is that they do come in with this thing that they drive on, and they spread this fertilizer material. And it does cast the material, okay? So what I was thinking was maybe we could agree that any material fertilizer that gets put on the lawn would be put on with a hand sprayer and no longer use that type of apparatus. Even though I think it's kind of a reach to think that that's getting down all the way down the slope and into the vernal pool some 30, 35 feet away. If you believe that it is, then it's a concern. So if maybe that could work as one thing, and then if we could agree to only put down a natural fertilizer, which I always thought we were putting down, and have that approved by your agent, Matt. I was hoping that we could kind of move on from this. But those were my ideas,
Did you
based
mention
on what I found out.
two things? Did you just mention that in your presentation, that versus the pellets going out, that there's a way of applying it?
What I was talking about was compost tea. Essentially, it's like water run through a rich compost that comes out with a lot of the natural nutrients into a liquid that can be sprayed out on the lawn. What he was just saying is somewhat accurate based on what I've now got from the company doing the applications, was that most of the year they're putting down what's called sustain, which is a natural or maybe organic fertilizer that's a lower output, but it's still granular. So it still comes with the same issues as other types of fertilizer when it hits the water, especially in a relatively confined basin like that one. Like I said, the issue for me with, using something that's in a liquid form is that it has the opportunity to be taken up very quick into the plant. You wouldn't be applying it in the middle of a sunny day when it's 80 degrees out, because it's all going to evaporate, and there's no point to that. All it's going to do is hurt the plants at that point. So the application timing has to be done in a certain way for best uptake. And when you get uptake, the nutrients are in the plant, not sitting there on top of the soil, waiting to be washed away if we get, like we talked about earlier, the big rainstorms. It doesn't even have to be one of the freak ones that we had that became problematic on the last, on Main Street. It's just anything enough to not infiltrate and start running off is carrying the stuff away. So I don't know if there's a way to do anything with granular on that property without having issues. And it's a tough property. It's always been a tough property. You have wetlands on all sides of you there. There's
Yeah,
really,
that's
there's, in my opinion, there's no way to have a property there and just have normal use of it the way anybody else could have, elsewhere without violating wetlands regulations or conditions of the permit. And
Even using a hand sprayer with like a liquid application?
I think, like I said, I think a liquid application of, a liquid organic fertilizer. I'm saying compost tea because I think that's the most benign. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are other liquid options that could be as benign as that, in terms of not being available for runoff. I don't think personally that any dry product is something that could be used there without that effect.
And Matt? When I said last time we met about clover, it's true. If you seeded your lawn with clover, they have special nodules in the roots that make available nitrogen. They don't use it all, it's available to plants around them. You will get a greener lawn. For pests, there's always hand digging. I'm sorry, but that's a possibility. And the vernal pool, yes, it's good to have a little wood in the pool, and I've also studied vernal pools for quite a long time. You don't take out the stuff that falls naturally in because it will rot. That's a very, very slow release of minor amounts of nutrients, which is just about what they need. When you get the flow of nutrients from lawn treatments, it's a rush. The green things that can grow in a pool will overgrow. They suck up all the oxygen in the water so that the critters that are living in there die. And then when all that green stuff itself dies and falls to the bottom,
Right.
then when it rots, it's small, it's easily digested by nature. It's a flush of more nutrients than the pool wants. Again, as it's rotting, it takes up oxygen. So you are in an almost impossible situation. I feel for you because, a nice lawn's a nice thing to have. My lawn in particular is nothing but weeds and moss, and because I'm an environmentalist, an old tree hugger is what they used to call us. And I'm pleading with you to think about what the pool is doing, how important it is. Your situation is awful because we've said you can't really apply fertilizer especially or pesticides because they will wash down. That's the end of the talk right there. Like Matt, I don't think there's really anything you can add, liquid or granular, that won't eventually wash into that pool and the other parts of the wetland.
Well, in my research, I did find some that can be applied in a liquid form. It's an attachment to a hose, and it has to be handheld. I looked up quite a few of them, and I had a conversation with Mr. Kubel, who was the scientist who approves these applications for vernal pools. And I discussed this particular one, and he was very familiar with this particular one.
What's the name of it?
I'm sorry?
What's the name of it?
What's the name of what? The fertilizer?
product.
Well, I can give you all the paperwork before I go.
All
How's
right.
that? There's several different brands, to be honest with you, Dottie. Some are granular and some are liquid.
Yeah.
But they're all manufactured by this company here. My glasses. I'll leave it with you. But he was very familiar with this particular vernal pool, and I think this one gets a lot of attention. But I don't know what else to do. The lawn's been there for 30 years.
The house hasn't been there for 30 years.
I'm sorry?
The house hasn't been there for 30 years.
28, 29, whatever. So it's been in the 80s, I bought the lot, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's immaterial how long it's been there, doesn't matter. It's
Well,
just
at any
that,
rate, it's,
Yeah.
like I say, the spreading application can be done in a liquid form. I don't know if the grass really, I've never not fertilized it, I guess. There has always been some form
yeah.
over the years, as it developed. It's healthy at this point. I don't know what would happen if you just walked away and let it go and watered it. I really don't know the answer to that.
So, Matt, do you think that if a liquid application was applied via hand spraying, that would protect the vernal pool?
I think that
and
depends
allow
on,
the lawn to flourish?
I think that depends on some factors. I think it depends on what it is, and it also depends on how it's applied. You know, like you said, they have stuff that attaches to the end of the hose. You know, you could see a situation where that could probably not go very well.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I guess.
Kalina, may I?
Yes, please.
So there's a couple of things I think that we should be discussing during this one, right? So, one, you know, as Mr. Kasner pointed out, you know, there is a leaching field, right? And what leaches out of a leaching field, but,
Nitrogen.
you know, nitrogen and phosphorus, right? The pictures, looks like you have some phosphorus bloom type greenness going on there. I mean, I didn't go there, but I looked at the pictures, right? So that, I think we can take at face evidence that there's a slope, it's running downward, whether or not it's the water coming from the leaching field, following a gradient and ending up in the pool, or if it's surface runoff associated with whatever we're applying for our lawns. I think in this case, I think we can accept that we are affecting that vernal pool in a negative way, okay? I don't think that's a stretch by any means, so I think you get into a point where, you know, the discussion is whether or not you can apply anything on that site, and from, you know, the compost tea side of it, that's probably the most dilute that you could possibly get, but there's still gonna be phosphorus and nitrogen in that. There's gonna be microbes and a lot of other good stuff on it too, but something like that where it's such a little amount, I don't know, potentially I'd be swayed to say, yeah, that could probably be done. But liquid fertilizers are a totally different animal. So unless I'm hearing something that says 0N, 0P, I'm gonna be of the opinion that, you know, I don't care if it's powder mixed in water and then sprayed, we're still gonna at some point evaporate the water. It's not necessarily going straight into the plant or the soil. It's still potentially gonna be released when we supersaturate that soil. So there's a potential that whatever we do here is going to at some point contribute to the detriment of that wetland that's right there. So from my perspective, we really get into this, one of these things where some sites shouldn't be developed. And it's unfortunate to say that, and some sites were developed and really shouldn't have been, and people lived there. And Mr. Kasner, I wouldn't wish your situation on anyone, because you have a nice landscape. You have a nice house, like,
Oh,
it's
thank you.
beautiful.
It's
But
beautiful.
But Jim, you also have to consider the fact.
no, wait,
is-
let me just go, and then I
Okay.
promise I'll listen to you. But sometimes you can do more damage than what should be allowed. And in this case.
We're not looking to do any damage here.
Just hear me out, and I'll wrap it up. I think in this case, we're doing more damage than what we should be allowing. Contaminants, I think is pretty clear, we're contaminating, or we're contributing to the contamination of that wetland by allowing this process to continue further. So, in my opinion, this is one of those things where there's plenty of things that you could do potentially that doesn't involve grass, and you know, it's complex because there's a leaching field there, but maybe the green, you know, 1950s grass that's beautiful but bad for the local environment might be the thing that needs to be reconsidered, and I'm open to that. So I would say that we gotta pull back on the use of anything in this area. It's getting in the way, and that's my 2 cents.
Kalina, can I just follow up really
Yes,
quick
please,
on
Matt.
that before?
Let me just hear from Matt, and then you can respond to both of them at the same time.
So just something that Jim mentioned, and I was gonna sort of bring it up earlier, that's important, is that the septic system was permitted, right? It wasn't permitted, from my understanding, by the town, Conservation Commission. This was a property that was allowed during a superseding order by DEP. right? So that was where the real development of the property was able to start from there. The fertilizer use was not, right? And I think from day one of this house being developed, the idea was that this was a very sensitive area and steps were gonna have to be taken to make sure that things weren't impacted. That's why you had these conditions that show up in various permits over the years. And there were other conditions that weren't followed. There were things like, there was language on, any disturbed areas within a certain distance of the wetlands are supposed to be replanted with like species, the native species that are supposed to be there, with the same things in mind, that you're supposed to be protecting that area by, getting the natural vegetation to grow back there. And, so where we talk about somebody that's lived there for almost 30 years, that's been applying something to that lawn for 30 years, you now have a lawn that it is likely, I don't want to say like accustomed to fertilizer use, and if you stop using fertilizer completely, I'm sure it's not going to go well. You're not going to have a healthy lawn. You can have a healthy lawn without fertilizer use if you plan for it and use the right things, but just pulling it, it's not going to be pretty. But this wasn't supposed to be the case. This wasn't supposed to be a property that could have heavy fertilizer use, that could have expansive landscaped areas, close to wetlands. It just wasn't supposed to be like that. So I think it is important to get to a place where the commission, knows that we're not going to get additional runoff into the pool, right? You might have something there from the septic system that was permitted, that, met or meets Title V, right? Or that met it back then, or met whatever the code was back when it was first.
Or
done.
got a variance and then
Something.
Board of Health said it's okay. and
It was
you know,
superseded
so-
over the conservation, it was allowed to be built, so it was permitted, it's there. There may be impacts from that going into that pool or the other wetlands on the site, I don't know, but we know that when you apply fertilizer, especially granular, to a lawn and you have rain, it runs off down into that pool, so you control what you can. I think if this property was being permitted right now, absolutely the only way the commission would let that go through would be alternative technology, septic system. But we're not talking about that now. That's done. You control what you can, which is that there was never supposed to be applications like this there, and the language was
I think our
clear.
language would have been clearer moving, if this was today and we decided, fine, we can mitigate this, this, and this, we would still have conditions that prevented the use of these types of, any type of nitrogen or phosphorus or any such, impact to the wetland through application, from a human, so.
Let's hear a word from Mr. Cassidy.
The last point that's not being considered, to the point of somewhat being ignored. When I spoke to Mr. Kubel, I went over the actual layout of the lay of the land there. Where is this water coming from? Where did it all come from? How did this happen? He told me that they're not concerned with where the water comes from, that they're only concerned if there's those eggs that are in there, and the one species of eggs that was found that got this thing certified in the first place. But that water, there's a connecting stream that comes in from the right side of the property, which deems it a wetland. All it is a hand-dug trench to conduct the road drainage to the back of the property and out into the Cranberry Bogs Pond. There's a connecting stream that takes a left and comes around and feeds the vernal pool, if we're gonna call it that. That stream conducts nothing but road water, wastewater off the road. And that's what fills it, and that's what retracts it. And it's all regulated by the dam out back that was installed by the cranberry grower. Now, we keep an eye on that dam now, after an agreement with your former chairman, who came there, and we went out there with him, and he was a big help, the guy. He was a good guy. And we keep an eye on that dam as far as for the height of the water, because if they put another board or two in it, everything floods and backs up. brings with it
Okay.
everything that's not
And that's where
supposed to
your
come.
trees came into this
Yeah.
way back when, right?
Well, if you talk to the old timers over in Pembroke, one of the first thing they'll tell you is what ruined all those ponds over there with the back flushing of the cranberry bogs into the ponds. And this is a similar effect that's gone on there. It killed all the trees, everything behind our house. It looks like Death Valley days back there now, with nothing but stumps sticking up, and it's a mess. Water in the basement, trees
those pine
falling on
trees,
the,
right,
we
you-
went through all that.
Yeah, they're all
You soaked
We
them-
went through
They
all
got
that.
soaking, like, wet roots and pine trees killed pine trees.
But all I'm pointing out is that inflow of water is the source that primarily fills this area. And the way that was originally created was when they built the first cranberry bog, they mined the sand out from that area and used it to create the bog. That's where it came from, and then it filled up with water. And then they dug the trench to alleviate it. I've been there a long time, and I know the old timers who were there before me, and I've talked to them, so now I'm one of the old timers that's been there. But as far as the fertilizer goes, if you think that, but I'd like to come up with something that we could at least preserve the lawn and live and peacefully, and it certainly will be monitored. I mean, everything up there is scrutinized, so.
Mr. Kazin, let me ask you this, right? If you have the means and the resources, and this is a different conversation for you than anybody else. You have equipment. If there was a way to change out the species of lawn to something that wouldn't require, like Dot said, I mean.
Tear out the whole front lawn?
I'm asking because you have the resources, and that's the only reason. I mean, if you want this to go away and everybody wants this to go away, is that a viable alternative for
Or
you?
maybe like create some desert landscaping? I have
No.
No, you don't
desire-
have to do
I
that.
have no desire to do
I'm
that.
sorry to butt in, but you've got the wrong idea.
Sorry.
The clover is just overseeded. You don't take the lawn out, you just throw the seeds on the lawn and let it grow into the lawn. You don't have to do anything other than that.
So you're just saying, bring the other species into the
Just
lawn, which
throw it
would
in,
replicate
it'll
the.
take care of itself. What, I'm interested in this ditch you said, where is it dug? What road does it drain?
I'm sorry, Route 27. We widened it by 10 feet and added a sidewalk while I was the chairman of the Board of Selectmen. I supervised the entire project.
Isn't it
There-
illegal
There were
to,
hearings
it's
at
illegal
the
to
Conservation
to
Commission.
drain the road into a private property?
That's right.
Yeah, they
That's
shouldn't be
exactly
there.
what Mass DEP says. You couldn't be more spot on, Donnie.
Right.
That's right. You're 100%
They
right. There
shouldn't
were
be
no
there.
easements whatsoever for all that drainage. Gary Lagenbacher objected to the whole project.
Absolutely.
Nobody did anything. And then the floods came. We had to live through it. You can shake your head all you want. The water
Well,
filled up my
Is
basement.
that our road, 27, or is that a?
Yes, all that drainage from 27 flows down, goes in the catch basin and spills out to the right front corner of my property. At one point in time, my mother used to walk over and have coffee with Gladys Jacobs, who lived next door to the right.
Yeah.
She used to step over the small hand-done culvert that would conduct the water. After the flood, it was some 25 feet wide. It's gone back down now, but after the flood, he increased the drainage. The cranberry grower took one look at all the water and said, I'm gonna corral this is what we need. Built the dam, because the first dam fell down, put in a whole new dam, built it, put in a flume, adjusted the water level, and flooded the properties up front. That's why the pine trees died.
Yeah.
There wasn't a plague. That's why all the damage was done. I didn't know till my mother called me. I was in Florida.
I'd like to hear from Matt for a moment.
We had to
So
live through
I
it.
don't have the 30 years on the property, but I'm plenty familiar at this point from the filing record, unfortunately. So some of what was just said is true, some of it is not, but I believe that most of it is irrelevant to the conversation that we're having right now. It doesn't matter if the Atlantic Ocean backs up to the vernal pool and provides a little bit of salt water into it. We're still not allowing runoff from lawn applications or yard applications to go into a vernal pool. And the conditions on the property the entire time since it was first developed are pretty clear about stuff like that.
All right,
So
there's-
there may be some like issues with road runoff. I don't know. We get that all the time from people that, oh, the road was wide and the runoff
Right.
changed and now I have wetlands or whatever.
Okay.
Like, there were wetlands on 3 sides of that property before it was ever developed. On one side was likely a stream that
Right.
likely has changed over time, whether it's from road runoff or some of the stuff the Cranberry Company did. There is that, and we showed it to any of the commissioners that were on site the other day, saw that. There is what looks like a hand-dug ditch going from the area of the vernal pool around the back of the property, and it ties out into the bogs, and it ties over, I believe behind this, a whole wetland complex there that ties into the stream that comes out from Pembroke Street. So
Okay.
Matt, can I-
there is water moving around there,
Right.
but from all of these things, there's still a vernal pool there.
Right.
There's still
Just
been a
okay,
vernal pool there
just
for
for
decades.
clarification, man.
Yeah,
I
Jim,
I have another,
could we just have from Jim for just 1 second
I'll
and
be
then
super quick.
just
Matt.
interject?
Vernal pools aren't allowed to have outlets. I expect that there is no outlet to the vernal pool, or else they wouldn't have certified it.
It's a tricky wording thing.
Show it on the
It-
plan.
It's a tricky wording thing, right?
Okay.
You can have an outlet. It can be a vernal pool. You can have a vernal pool in the middle of a wetland. You can have a vernal pool in the middle of a river and stream complex, right?
Okay.
If there's a basin there, that basin itself does not have an outlet, that's a vernal pool. You may have a higher area here that has a cut in it that goes off and drains to something else or provides drainage in. They're not gonna say that's not a vernal pool because of that.
Right, it's a vernal pool.
It's a vernal pool.
But at some elevation, if it floods, it can run off. That's what you're saying, if I
And
heard you right?
vice versa, stuff can run into that from that as well.
Okay, so
But
it's
you can't say
potential that
that
there is
that's the
some-
way it gets all of its
I-
water.
that's-
That's not
I'm
all
inaccurate.
right,
completely-
we're missing another solution. One of the things that you can do is to heavily plant the area in front of the pool with native plants, so that as nutrients do come down, I'm not saying you can use them,
I know exactly what you're saying.
but that will suck up a lot of the nutrients
I
that
spoke to
exist.
Mr. Kubel about that, the scientist who approves these things.
Right,
I spoke to him about that.
yeah, and that
I
would
also
help.
spoke to him about the source water, and he told me they really weren't concerned where it gets its water, but if those things grow in there, these eggs, and they find them, that's what they base the certification on.
That's right.
Even though this one had to be initially certified and then recertified due to an improper mapping. The initial samples on the mapping were a
Not
quarter
just-
mile up the street.
Okay, we
Not
It's certified.
Not an accurate
This has
way
been a
to,
circus since
not
the
an
day
One
one.
accurate-
second, we have a
not an
member of
accurate
the
way to-
audience who'd like to comment.
turn.
All right,
can I,
Sit down.
can I,
I'm not done.
You are for now. She has the right to have
No,
a
she
turn.
did complain to me that the last time she didn't get to talk. So you know what?
can I
Go right
quickly?
ahead.
Yes.
and before you begin, Marilyn, could Matt just have a
But
word,
the
say
last
one
point-
thing?
It's Matt's turn. Thanks.
So-
We've handed it over to Matt for 1 second, and then to Marilyn. then
Yeah,
you
it's
can
not an
speak.
accurate statement that it had to be
We're
certified.
done,
Just-
please.
Have a seat, Mr. Kastner, just for a second.
should not be weaponized.
You're done. It's
Okay.
not,
It's actually just a protected piece of land.
it's
but
not
that's
an
fine.
accurate statement that it had to be certified twice. It was a mapping issue. Mapping issues happen all the time. I've seen the documentation on it. When it was first submitted, it had the correct addresses, but on the map, it showed it as being further down Pembroke Street. So a revision was sent. Now, when it was certified,
Sit
that
down.
letter was sent to,
Sir,
Joe,
it is not
you
your
can't
time.
talk right now.
Just have a seat, and just please stay in your seat until it's your time to come back. Hold on.
You can't lie either.
I've seen the paperwork on it. When it was certified, letters were sent from the Natural Heritage Program to 160 and 164 Pembroke Street. They had a map attached to it that showed it being in a different area down the street. Later on, an update was sent out to 160 and 164 Pembroke Street explaining the mapping issue and showing the updated map. It was certified once, only needs to be certified once. It's a vernal pool. This thing, and I like Joe, great guy. We've had a four and a half year relationship now. He's, right next door a lot of the time. And just the conversations where it's the so-called vernal pool or vernal pond, and you just said it tonight, like vernal pool, if that's what we're calling it. That's the problem. Like, the problem is you have a almost 30-year history on this property that was problematic to develop in the first place, and you knew that. You have wetlands on 3 sides of you, you have a vernal pool there. But the lack of respect for that feature being a vernal pool is part of the problem. You don't respect that, and your actions have not respected it. You just said you've been using chemicals out there for the entire time, right? And saying that the reason why there's algae blooms in there is because of natural log, decomposition in the pool. It's ridiculous and it's not true. And you're mischaracterizing some of the processes that have happened with this, and it's not right.
Can
We
we
don't
hear-
need to get down into the weeds of every single thing throughout the history of this property and everything that's happened. That has happened in this room 1,000 times, and we're gonna sit here all night if we do that. We have a vernal pool, and we have a lawn area, and we have landscape plantings in between the lawn area and the vernal pool, and I've discussed that with them in the past, that replacing some of those with native plantings would be a great idea, and there was one point that I thought that was necessary, because I didn't think that those plantings were ever permitted. He has since, brought up information that made me realize that at some point, a COC was issued on that property with those plants being there. So great. They were allowed to be there. It's still not best practices, and we had to stop the landscaping practice of blowing all of the leaves and debris through that into the vernal pool, because that was happening, and then cutting all of the native vegetation behind the native plantings on the bottom of the slope that were trying to grow still and being held back. So I've been trying for years to get the property into compliance with you so that you can enjoy your property and we don't have to have constant enforcement issues or discussions. And what we need to discuss tonight is whether or not anything can be used on that property. If the commission wants to weigh other options and allow him to send information in for us to review, that's fine. I don't know what there could be for other, like you said, talked about like other types of liquid fertilizers. I certainly don't think that any chemical liquid fertilizer would be appropriate or anything that needs to be applied at a high rate in terms of dilution or volume. Like I said, I kind of offered one thing that I think could work there that could allow him to still have a lawn, right, without having to go through any extreme measures of trying to overseed it with certain types of species or scrap it and rebuild it with certain types of species. I mean, I think, like Dot said, adding clover is a fantastic idea. I don't understand why people spray clover with herbicide in their lawns. It's I don't know, unless you have bee concerns. I know there's, some of that, but, I mean, we need to get to a situation here where it's in compliance and we don't have to constantly be having these conversations. And it's a vernal pool. It's certified. That's it. And there are steps you can take, and I've explained this to Mr. Kazner. There are steps you can take to try to decertify a pool if you want. It's not frequently successful because there are reasons why pools are certified, and it is a vernal
At that
pool.
point, it's still a wetland.
It is a vernal pool, and exactly, I've made that point too. It is scrutinized more because it's a vernal pool,
Right.
but it's a wetland, it still has protection.
Could we hear from Marilyn for a moment? Please.
Marilyn Cosjoy, 160 Pembroke Street. I am in a butter. I'm struggling with some of the lies that have been presented, and I am going to try to make this very brief. But as far as speaking to the mapping issue, believe it or not, it was a Google Maps issue, and I was also put in a flood zone, had to get a map change for that, and it was strictly people using Google, and it was the wrong thing, and it was corrected, and that's the end of that. As far as the history of this property, I've been there since 1999. It was prior to the construction of the house. If you did that site walk and you identified the corner of the house that is only 25 feet away from a wetland, I'm wondering if there is a buffer along that edge between the lawn that was hydroseeded there, between the 25-foot corner of the house and the wetland line, because now it's lawn and it's being treated as lawn and it's being mowed. Again, to Matt's point, if there were some buffers put in to absorb some of the runoff, perhaps that would protect the wetlands that surround the house. The other thing that you're dealing with is a property with orders of conditions, things that have not been followed, that have been allowed to run out and were never recorded. Then they expired. You've got orders of conditions that were expired, and yet they were recorded in July of 2022. Won't that be running out after 3 years? Won't that expire also? I would say if that was July of 2022, then those orders of conditions are expiring again. Is that not accurate?
I can't speak with 100% certainty, but I don't believe that the recording of them in any way made that permit functionable again or actionable. It was expired, it was allowed to be recorded as an
Right.
expired permit with the understanding that a COC would need to be filed and any of the conditions on that, orders of conditions would need to have been followed in order for a COC to be issued.
So again, it's my understanding there is not a current acceptable wetland delineation for that property because the last one that was attempted was in 2022, done by Michelle Grenier, whose work was unverified, and as I understand it, her work is not acceptable to DEP.
I can clarify that. There is a plan of record that was accepted by the commission with a wetland delineation by Michelle Grenier because I went out and inspected the work and we moved a couple flags based on my field review. Michelle Grenier the work needs that level of scrutiny, in my opinion, but we did provide it. So we do have a plan of record for that property. We went over that several times. At the time, there were discussions about the fact that the stream on the side was shown as a ditch and things like that. So that it's not, I wouldn't say it's any perfect by any means, but it is something that the commission found acceptable for what it is.
Mary?
Again, are there buffer areas to help with some of these issues? Again, you were talking about landscaping plants as opposed to natural vegetation. It was my understanding throughout that it was supposed to be naturally vegetated, not all lawn. Could you speak to that?
It's messy. So the area that she's talking about is in the front of the house on the side of the vernal pool. There is very little buffer there. The lawn area is right at the top of the slope. There is a combination of native vegetation and landscape plants on that particular section. That's an area that supposedly was hydroseeded outside of permitting in more recent years, but
And was
I
part of an
believe-
enforcement order that never was completed?
and I believe was part of the whole agreement with the conservation posts years ago. I may be incorrect in that, it may be separate, but I don't have a good record on that I know of. There's a lot of files on this particular property. I don't know that I have complete information on that part of it. But as to right now, no, there's not, obviously sufficient buffer area to protect the pool, but there's also very limited space there between the house and that edge, at least on the corner. There may be some areas where that can be improved, but there's some areas where that might be harder.
I believe you were talking about a certificate of compliance. Are you expecting a request for that anytime soon? And do you have the materials necessary for that, such as an as-built?
We've had no COC filing. At one point, the homeowner was working with a landscape architect on coming up with some sort of a plan. And at that time, I was holding for, the need for what I assumed at that point were unpermitted landscape plantings to be dealt with and replaced out with native plantings. And to add this to a previous question you had that I didn't answer, you have sort of a tricky permitting history there where you had that 2002, what we call the pool filing that came with no plan other than a pencil sketch on a piece of paper of the pool, which is great for the record, 20-something years later, came with a condition that said that any disturbed areas would be vegetated in kind, anything that was disturbed that wasn't part of the developed area. But since that was apparently accepted with no plan, then I have nothing to reference in terms of what was supposed to be developed area and what was supposed to be revegetated. All it says is the distance, right? Within a certain distance, it's supposed to be revegetated in kind. But was the pool built the way it was supposed to be built? Was there supposed to be this type of area and landscaping around? I have no idea. I have nothing on that one, so I don't know. I don't know that that was done correctly. And on the front, wasn't sure whether that same condition was supposed to apply to some of that as well. But based on some of the documents that the homeowner presented for the COC and my review of aerial imagery, it appears that the landscape plantings in the front were planted before the COC was issued. And again, I don't think we have a good plan of record on that either, showing any of that. I don't have a plan of record that shows that there's supposed to be landscape plantings there. But it appears that they were there before a COC was issued, which means at some point, some version of conservation staff and conservation commission reviewed it and said, great, and issued a COC for that. So in terms of getting a COC now, I don't think it should be a terribly heavy lift for the homeowner, but we have the standard requirements, which is you need an as-built, you need a certification from an engineer that everything was built the way it was supposed to be built. But again, on this particular filing, we have no plan of record. It's a sketch. It's, so that part might be more difficult, but it might not. I don't know.
Let me just make one point and then I'm done.
Okay.
Lastly, coming full circle to the issue about fertilizer, contaminants, this, that, and the other thing. I know with properties at the top of the coastal bank, we have a statement regarding no fertilizer use and this and that, and we also have a statement included about record keeping, so that there's a record and a reporting system for what is used on the property. That would disallow any confusion. And I would just respectfully make that suggestion as you're going forward in considering how to monitor what is used on the property. Thank you.
Yes?
No, I lost that. It might come back.
This,
Mr. Kasner?
Sorry, could I just do this real quick, just because
Yeah, you
might
go
be able
right
to
ahead.
answer this. I remember talking about this, and I remember that we asked for an as-built at some point in this process a long time ago, because I remember Buzz saying it, and saying,
That's
and
right.
the intent
we
was,
gave it here.
we want to see it because we want to know what's there, we can talk about
That's
it, we
right.
can.
Buzz said
document
it
right?
verbatim. I can hear him saying it right.
Right, okay.
I agree with you 100%.
There was
We
something.
gave
there.
it to you. Joe Webby said, we gave him everything he asked for.
Yeah.
We came back and forth 3 or 4 times.
Okay.
Megan criticized that there was too much back and forth to get to where you wanted us to be with the plan. I recall you,
Because there was no
Pointing
vernal
that
pool
out.
on the plan you submitted to us.
Thanks,
I'm
Mr.
sorry I didn't
Kasner.
hear you, but-
Matt wanted to just interject.
but at any rate, yes, the plan was
Mr.
completed
Kasner,
and submitted.
Matt wants to
It was not.
interject just for a second.
So, yeah, technicality on that. What we accepted was a plan of record, right? A existing conditions plan, that's what was asked for. You said you wanted a baseline plan to show what's there right now. As to whether that counts as the as-built plan or not, it could.
We would have
But
to
you would
accept it
probably
as
have
such.
to, yeah, it would have to be, in my opinion, there should be something on that
Look,
Mr. Kasner?
where it should be specifically for that orders of conditions, which was
okay,
specifically for
I
the pool
want to make
area.
sure I wasn't crazy.
I think what was asked for was more of a, what's on the property for wetlands, landscaping, what's been built. I don't know for sure whether that's 100% something that would cover as an as-built on that filing, but I can work with Mr. Kasna or his reps on whether that would when they want to file it.
Let's hear from Mr. Kasner.
That property sat for years with 2 giant sand piles in the front yard. We purchased it from the contractor who was originally going to develop it. He had to go to the DEP to get a superseding order of conditions in order to develop the property. The septic system permit was going to run out when we made the purchase from him. and we had to put the septic system in almost immediately, or the permit would have run out, and that would have created more problems in the development of the property. The foundation footings were already in place when I got there. We put the whole place together. Conservation was excited to get the property moving because it had been sitting for so long. It looked like a sand pit, abandoned sand pit on the old Route 27. That's what it looked like at the time. We went over everything, we developed an order of conditions. The attorney from the Nook, his name will come to me, was on the commission at the time, a group of towny guys, and we did the property and we built the house. And, we seeded the front lawn, whatever. We've cleaned up the back. There's been a lot of impact on the property, and a lot of it had nothing to do with us. I mean, I never paid that much attention. We increased the flows going back there, and all that happened in the back is not part of what we're talking about tonight, and I understand that. But there has been an awful lot of impacts that have gone on up there to both properties, mine, Marilyn's, and the Jacobs, that have had nothing to do with us as residents. It had to do with the actions and activities of others, and those actions and activities were clearly self-serving. They were trying to dam up the water. Well, it just didn't work out too good for anybody, including them. But if we can just, she's passionate about what she believes, and I understand that. But she's also my next-door neighbor. I don't want to keep going through this. It's crazy. So if we can just come up with a way that we can not impact this thing. I spoke to Q, the certifying and scientist. I spoke to him. I challenged it. I said, I brought up the point that you picked up on, which was the connecting stream. That's when he said to me, it doesn't matter where the water comes from. If the vernal pond develops, it develops. And I said, that's a Matt. I said, Matt, basically what he told me is any retention pond could eventually become a vernal pond. To which Matt said, yeah, I guess you could. I guess it could. I don't know. Not my business. But if we can come up with something that can work, and that's what you guys are here for, I think, that's it. Marilyn put a lot of time into getting that thing certified. She keeps a close eye on it. And Matt, you did not say, we did discuss, I thought the discussion was, and the landscape architect and my wife, who were present at the time, thought that the discussion was adding plants that would absorb the nutrients to the slope. And yet when I spoke to you, I got the impression that it was also going to involve taking out all of those plants that were already there, that are some 8-9 feet tall.
Yes.
And that was an unreasonable request, in my opinion, and that's why I said, that's it. So that's why that died on the vine. just
Right, and if
so
that
you
hadn't
know.
been permitted in the
Adding
first
was
place,
one
then
thing,
it
but-
would
but
not
ripping
matter
all
what you
out-
thought, but like I just said, it apparently was part of the COC, so that's not something that,
I know a
I
little
can
bit
push
about grading and construction. You
I'd like
tear
to
that
hear
bank
from Jim
apart
for
and
just
it's
a
going to
second.
fall down.
Mr.
I'm sorry.
Castle, let's hear from Commissioner Jim.
Okay, so I think at this point, as far as I'm concerned, I think I've heard enough to come to a motion, and I put it forward to the other commissioners for their recommendations and feedback before I offer it, but this is my thoughts, all right? I think that we've documented that there's an issue going on. I think the corrective action is to restrain the activity to make sure that it doesn't continue. I think that we're within our boundaries and our guidance on this to make such a decision to preclude the use of fertilizers and phosphorus and nitrate or any such application based on the fact that there's an ongoing detriment to the resource area. What I would also say is that as part of that kind of prohibition of using these types of applications on the property, we could point out to Mr. Kasner that he has every right to have admin review for anything moving forward, and if he thinks that he has pertinent information that he can bring forward and have a discussion with Matt, that
Matt could always bring it back to the commission to say, okay, well, he doesn't not want to have a beautiful lawn, and I can get why he wouldn't want to, and put forth a actual application to do whatever he wants to. So if it involves swales, if it involves swapping out some grass into, native plantings or whatever such, that we don't have to worry about it, I would be open at that point to reconsidering anything that involves application after he can contain it all and make sure that it is not any longer a detriment to that resource area. So my motion, if everybody agrees, would be to issue an enforcement order that prevents the application of any nitrogen, phosphate, fertilizers, or lawn treatments moving forward on the property. And that would, I think if we do that, then we put the ball back into Mr. Cass's court, and if he wants to come up with a better solution, I'll be wide open to anything that comes through, but I don't think that we can just keep going back and forth with this. I think we need to just draw our line and move forward with it. And then there's some other things that are there, but they're not part of this right now. So that would be my motion if everybody's open and amenable to it.
I'll second.
All right, so there's a motion, yes, and there's a comment.
So a motion and a second, we don't take comments.
Oh, I didn't think you could do that.
Yeah, you can't take comments.
Yeah, we do, actually, we have a motion, we have a second.
Well, I was trying to get your attention because I'm concerned about whether Jim's language would be misconstrued as not addressing the other contaminants.
Well,
I'm sorry, if I wasn't clear, so yes, any contaminants, any lawn treatments, anything that falls into the discussion tonight as a potential contamination, including anything that's water applied from a sprayer, until such a point that he comes back and it goes through the review process, and if we decide that is okay to apply, then it comes back. But right now, I think the only way that we're gonna bring this into compliance would be to make sure that there's no applications until it's cleared proactively, in this very limited use of this application, I think, based on the fact that this parcel, you have no ability, to do it safely without detrimenting the resource area. That's it. So was that clear enough? Did you understand it?
As long as you're using the word contaminants and it includes the herbicide, that whole
Yep, yep. So contaminants, including fertilizers, nitrogen applications, phosphates application, herbicides, pesticides to the exterior, to the outside, not inside.
May I add?
I'm thinking we
Something
have a
that-
motion and we have a second. And discussion.
Let's open for discussion.
Yeah,
So,
Board.
yeah.
So I can check with town council. I don't necessarily believe that we need to issue an EO on that. But I can clarify that with council before taking any action. But I mean, personally, a letter clarifying, we already have a perpetual condition, no contaminants, no herbicides, no this, no that. I would call that out and specify that the commission finds that the application of any fertilizer, or similar substances applied on a property would be a contaminant. Therefore, you can't apply anything without having whatever it is permitted.
I think if we issue an enforcement action stating that is our findings based on the fact that there was actions that were counter to the existing conditions that were on there, then it makes it a little bit clearer that we've already issued an enforcement action. I'm not asking for fines. I'm saying let's bring it into compliance and let's give him a path forward. If he has science on his side, then we can at a later date open it back up to discussion on a totally different approach. So that would be my thought on it.
Are you ready to clarify your motion for me? Just restate your motion.
All right, so the motion would be for the commission to authorize the agent to issue an enforcement action against 164 Pembroke Street, to notify that contaminants, pesticides, herbicides, nitrogen treatments, phosphorus treatments, lawn treatments shall not be placed moving forward
On his lawn.
on his lawn due to the location and the ongoing detriment to the wetlands.
May I have your
Resource.
second?
Yeah, exactly.
All right,
This is all lawn, right, including front and back?
All, yeah.
okay. So we have a motion, we have a second. We'll take a vote on that. Dot?
Yes?
Jim?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Kalina's a yes. Motion carries.
Joe? You have to go back.
What?
What's up, Dottie?
What is the soil under your grass?
Want to say that again, huh?
What is the soil type under your grass?
Loam?
Is it loam, is it sand?
There's loam, then there's sand, yes. There's a subsoil,
Okay.
then loam, then, grass.
So what Matt said, I know.
and under that, excuse me, under that is the leaching trenches.
Okay. If you do what he said with the loam, excuse me, with the mulch, thin applications 2 or 3 times a year continually, that will help to build a richer soil, a deeper soil, so you won't have to add so much. It will hold what nutrients it has without having them run off.
Are you talking about mulching settings on the mower, like not bagging?
Setting the mower higher, adding the clover seed, I'm adamant about that, adding the mulch. Those things will help to keep the lawn greener and thicker, and build the soil so it will continue that way.
Okay, thank you. I was going to ask one other question, if I can.
Please do.
When we do projects with various conservation commissions up and down the coast, we have to put in either a silt fence or a silt sock to prevent any type of erosion or whatever going into the resource area. So my question to you would have been this: what if we was to be able to put a berm in the form of something that would encapsulate something along the top of that slope all the way around and extend it?
Weren't you thinking of something like
So-
that too?
So Joe, what I
Just a
wanted to
question.
do today is bring this to a head, close it out, saying, Joe, you
Yeah, I-
can't do it anymore. But you can always come back and talk with the conservation agent to say, hey, I think I put a lot of thought into it, I talk to a lot of smart people, this is what I'm proposing to do. And then come back and talk to us as an RDA or whatever. You can have those types of conversations. It's just right now, stop putting stuff down. And,
Got it.
because nobody wants to
It was
do
just
this.
a question.
Yeah, yeah. But you understand that you have the ability to bring forth anything at any time to.
Oh, I see
okay.
them quite often.
Yeah. It's not we're not telling you fine now. We're saying today, let's just draw a line, let's not do it anymore. And then come back to Matt. And then as you need to, you come back to the commission, whoever's sitting here, you find a better solution. I'm open to whatever solution that will achieve the intent of what we're discussing here. Right now, the intent, the thing that
I hear
achieves the intent is to not put any more.
Save the
I
container.
understand.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Good night, Mr. Casson.
Night.
Good night to you.
You bet. Do we have meeting minutes?
Thank you.
May 14th.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, I'm sorry, I gotta look at these.
Was there anyone there?
It's usually in there if that's the case.
Yeah, I didn't see anybody.
Yeah, let's see, it must be everybody. May 14th.
Hang on a second, let me just double check. I don't know why.
Is that yours?
No. All right.
Minutes.
I don't see any minutes.
May 14th.
Did you just send them to me?
Oh, like the actual document? No, we don't usually do that. It goes around beforehand.
All right, so we just want to vote to accept the minutes for May 14th?
Unless people haven't,
Any questions on May
Reviewed them.
14th? Has everybody seen those minutes? Yeah?
You want a motion to accept?
Just a motion to accept them.
My move that we accept the minutes from May 14th?
Got a second?
Second?
All right. We have a motion to accept the minutes for May 14th. Jim?
Yes.
Dot?
Yeah.
Megan?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Colleen is also a yes. All right, now we have an update on the Blackwater Memorial Forest Restoration.
Bridges were at about 99% done. Monday, Sumco came back and connected the pathways to the bridges and put some erosion control matting on the slopes leading down from the bridges to the streams. And yesterday, John Bonomi was out there putting the finishing touches on the second bridge. It just needs like one little piece painted. I am going to start scheduling guided walks. We're going to reopen the property, I believe it should be Monday. So at long last, the property will be opened back up, and I'll be scheduling walks to kind of walk people through what we did there and why, just to try to get out ahead of people showing up there and going, oh my God, it looks so terrible, what a waste, what are they doing? Personally, I think it already looks pretty good. We've got a lot of vegetative regrowth there from the work, but you know, some of the stream areas and everything that are new are gonna need some time before they look, you know, perfect. We used a cover crop along all the hydro-seeded areas along the sides of the trail. We actually used buckwheat, which did really well considering it went down in the middle of, like, I think July, and has no irrigation on it whatsoever. And it's all blooming right now, so it's providing tons of resources for pollinators, which is cool. Sumco will be back in, I believe, late September to finish up the hydroseeding by, you know, applying the correct mix with the cover crop just to get it more stable through the winter. But finally, at long last.
Matt, is it, the, is there a plan to take down more pine out of there, or?
Over time.
Okay.
Some of it's already dying, finally. It didn't die when I added a board and tried to drown it for a year before the project started, but some of it has already started to die. There's been a few blowdowns, which I think looks not awesome when people are there walking around because they're close to the trail. We had them leave some small regen trees in place to try to provide a visual block of the, you know, oh my factor for the microtopography work, which is basically them out on the bog flipping the soil over and making a mess. But some of those areas, the wind, after they didn't have anything around them, blew them down. But over time, just by hand, kind of walking around the bog, girdling pines as needed, just to open up more sunlight down there. And hope that over time, with the new hydrology, that they're unhappy anyways and just kind of stop growing there.
It looks great. I mean, it does look great.
It's a killer project. You know, that visually, some of the things that I don't like in the upper, where we replaced the water control structure by the impoundment on the dike, that is now a bridge across a stream channel, but it was designed with riprap in the bottom, and I don't love that. It's not the best, but over time that will naturalize. It's already filling in with sediment and different things that I think over time it'll look fine. But the rest of it, they did a really good job with it, and I think we're gonna hit a lot of our goals, ecologically speaking, I think. And it provides a totally different appeal for walking around that bog, the 4-acre bog cell now. You can see really well into it and also into the natural wetlands across the dike. And that pathway now around the 4-acre bog is wide, flat, easy to walk. Unfortunately, there was a miscommunication with the engineer on the design, and that pathway is not connected to the parking lot, which is fantastic. So the area between the parking lot and the path is just hydroseeded with the cover crop. It's just sparse because it's been walked on 1,000 times. So it'll be easy enough for us after the fact to make that right. And it would have been pretty expensive for them to do that differently now as part of this project. So, yeah, really good overall.
Fourth, and you know, it's time for closing remarks. The next meeting will be held September 10, 2025, starting at 6:30 PM. The time is now 8:40. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, then, Dot? Yes. Jim?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Clean as a yes. We will see you on the 10th. Thank you so much.